Good afternoon, everyone. I am, like many other people here, are slightly addicted to coffee. In fact, when I start work, often the first thing I do every morning is I put my bag down and I go straight to my coffee machine to switch it on, make myself not one but 2 cups of coffee. On the weekends, I also like to drink coffee, but instead of making it at home, I like to go to a local cafe. This has the added benefit of getting me out of the house, having some fresh air, and if you know any mathematicians, we do need to get outside more. But no matter where I've lived, I've always had the same issue. There's never a cafe close to where I live. I always have to walk 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. And worse yet, when I get to that location, there's 3 or 4 different coffee shops. Why are they all together? Surely when they group together, they're competing for the same customers. Instead of competing by convenience, they're competing on price and quality of service. And if they're competing on price, they're making less profit. This is a problem that I wanted to solve. So I sat down with my coffee in a coffee shop, attracted a few strange looks as I opened up my laptop to start modeling this. But I did what mathematicians do and I tried to solve the problem. And as a mathematician, my first step was to simplify the problem. I imagined 2 cafes on a single road. There is obviously a location where they are equally spread out, where everyone on the left side of the road goes to the one cafe, the green cafe, and everyone to the right goes to the blue cafe. And no one has to walk more than a quarter of the distance. Everyone is close to a cafe. And this seemed like a perfectly logical solution to me, but humans and businesses, we're not perfectly logical. And what happens if one cafe gets a little greedier and thinks, if I move a little bit closer to the middle of the road, I can steal some of the other cafe's customers. And so they move a little bit closer to the middle of the road. And suddenly, more than half the people are going to the cafe on the left. And the blue cafe has fewer customers. So they have to do the only logical thing. Move closer to the middle. Steal some more customers. And then the green cafe is like, well, I'm going to go closer to the middle again. And we end up with that problem. Making this problem more realistic, we can bring it into 3D. And fortunately, there is a method to find the equidistant line between 2 points in mathematics. So I was perfectly qualified to do this, I thought, as I sat there sipping an iced Americano for the 3rd time in the morning. And we draw a circle around each of these cafes and draw a line between where they intersect. Everything closer to that cafe, the red cafe, all those people should go to the red cafe. Everyone closer to the blue cafe should go to the blue cafe from that line. And I can put this into a more complicated model again. 3 cafes. This is going to get a little crazy. This is what happens when you give a mathematician caffeine. Do not give mathematicians caffeine. You end up breaking your brain. So, we can see all the people in the red area go to the red cafe. The blue area go to the blue cafe. Green area go to the green cafe. It's not perfect, but it's as equal as I can make it, whilst jittering on my hands. But one of the cafes gets greedy and moves closer to the center. And another cafe now has a much smaller area. So they have to protect their own interests. And they also move closer, and everyone is together in the middle, and everyone has an equal amount of people, customers. This is an example of how companies, cafes, but not just cafes, I see it all the time with McDonald's and Burger King across the road from each other. A Domino's Pizza opening up on the same square as Pizza Hut already exists. They make choices which are logical for themselves, but to the detriment of everyone after the sequence has been played out. Moving closer to the opposition cafes, to the opposition customers, it works out for you, but then the competition has to respond. And suddenly everyone is closer together, competing on price, convenience, and quality of service. And everyone loses. Now, taking this little bit of business and mathematics and slightly a bit of a fever dream going on there whilst I was having coffee, I figured I've heard of this sort of problem before, where people make logical choices in the moment that has a negative impact over time. It's a very famous thought experiment called the tragedy of the commons. So imagine 3 villages. Each share a common pond. Within this pond, there are 12 fish. And every week, those fish can pair up and they produce another fish. And the villagers can each fish from this fish and take some food for their village. Now, if each village takes 1 fish, each of the 4 villages takes 1 fish, that leaves 8 fish left in the pond. That's 4 pairs of 2. And they produce 4 new fish. And then the fish renew time and time and time again. Each village will get infinitely many fish. However, one of the villages has a very sneaky person who's a little bit greedy and figures if he wakes up very early, he can get down to the shared pond, the common resource, and take 2 fish. Obviously, the other villages aren't going to go down lower than 8 fish left, otherwise there'll be no fish in the future. So what does that village have to lose? Except what happens is another of the villages has to go without a fish. And then the next time, that village goes down early to get 2 fish. Make sure that people do not go without food. But so does the first village again. And suddenly, the other 2 villages both go hungry. And this repeats until they take more than the 4 fish and leave fewer than 8 fish in the pond. And that will never recover then. The fish will run out. The villagers make a logical choice which benefits them in the moment. However, the competition must respond, and in doing so, those logical choices which benefit them in the moment are a detriment to everyone in the future. Having thought about this and deep into many, many coffees that I cannot remember, but my bank account clearly does, I was trying to attach this to further problems. I thought about this through a business perspective, through a mathematical perspective, and through this thought experiment. But how does it apply to the modern world? We don't fish in ponds anymore. Yes, we do have shopping malls and cafes and pizza places that all come together, but that's a very specific example. And it struck me that this tragedy of the commons is playing out in our world every day. It's in our news, it's being discussed by our politicians every day, and that is global warming. Our environment is a common resource. We all share it, we all benefit from a clean and healthy environment. However, we also benefit from cheap energy. Cheap energy allows us to build factories, to build cars. It allows us to build massive data centers to train AI. And all that energy has to come from somewhere. And at the moment, one of the cheapest sources of energy in many places around the world is fossil fuels, coal, natural gas. And by burning this coal and this natural gas, we are creating emissions, carbon emissions, which go out into the atmosphere and damage the common resource of our clean and healthy environment. Now, we could all just sit down and agree, I'm not going to use this energy anymore. I'm only going to use solar. I'm only going to use wind, tidal. But quite often there's a cost attached. And if a country decides, we're going to go ahead and use only renewable energy, it costs more. Suddenly, the factories building the cars, the price of the cars goes up. Suddenly, the AI centers training the computers, the cost goes up. It's no longer efficient. The companies move to another country with cheaper energy, a better deal where they can make more money. And so, every country makes a choice. It is logical for themselves. We are going to continue burning coal. We are going to continue polluting our atmosphere. We are going to continue destroying our environment. It is a logical choice. To do anything else would be to the detriment of the people within that country. However, what we are noticing now is rising sea levels, drought, floods, massive storms of much greater frequency than ever before, which comes with it not just a human cost, not just an environmental cost, but also a financial cost, as we need to insure all of our amazing, pretty factories that are building our cars, and that costs money. We need to build new flood defenses, and that costs money. And by every country taking that immediate logical step, which benefits them, we are poorer altogether. Every single country in time becomes poorer. So, wrapping this up a little bit, you might be thinking, you've talked about 3 random things that are a little bit linked by a caffeine fever dream. What is the point of this TED Talk? Why? You may be thinking, yes, the world's governments need to collaborate together, work as a team to combat our carbon emissions. And you'd be correct. Excellent. Well done. Let's go save the world. But I don't think that's a deep enough learning from this story. You might be thinking, businesses should collude to make more money from poor customers. If you do believe that, I suggest you make friends with a very, very, very good lawyer. You may be thinking, this man is too addicted to coffee and possibly should spend less time in cafes. And you're correct, yeah. But what do I think of this? I prefer to take from this that by approaching a problem in multiple perspectives, by thinking about something as a business person, as a mathematician, as a thought experiment, as an environmental scientist, we might not create new understanding. We might not create new knowledge, but we definitely understand our current knowledge at a deeper level. Today, it is very normal to specialize in a topic. It's not always been the way. Newton was a mathematician who thrived as a physicist and an economist. Da Vinci was a master of so many different arts. Descartes was a philosopher who founded some fundamental mathematical ideas. James Garfield, a US president, proved Pythagoras' theorem in a completely unique way. These people weren't specialists. They were polymaths. They specialized and were experts in many areas. They approached problems from different perspectives. I think in the modern world, we lose ourselves a little bit by specializing in our area. What I would like to encourage everyone here to do is to approach problems from multiple perspectives, to consider multiple disciplines, and see if you can create new understandings of old knowledge. Thank you.